Here's the writer's Allman Brother for Friday, January 30th, 2026. It's the birthday of Richard Brautigan. Born a mustache in 1935 Tacoma, they put him on a George Dickel whiskey drip in the NICU until he developed sunglasses, and then a big floppy hat, David Crosby hairdo, and a profane sense of the absurd. His parents wore medic alert bracelets that he wore on each arm. He said they'd fly up and whack him in the forehead now and then when he wouldn't stop writing poems about failed German field marshals. By age 7, he had 10 and a half half-siblings, all of his own imagining, and one quarter-sibling who was real. For a spell, he lived with her and her father in a nudist colony housed inside an inflatable snow globe that was, itself, the Presidio branch of the San Francisco Public Library. This would later be the setting of his most popular novel, The Pendulant Boob Job Rolls Nobly Down Conniption Street, followed by the less popular Try Not to Arm the Fart Marines, Yes, the Woman Pictured Near a Fountain on This Dust Jacket is Someone I Dated, and Trout Fishing in America. Today's the birthday of Shirley Hazzard, Australia's answer to the Dukes of Hazzard, only with markedly less hot cousin action and racist vehicular paint jobs, and a human novelist instead of a 1980s TV show. As a child on Convict Island, she imagined distant weather catastrophes blowing into the coast and decimating all of the pensive civil servants and compellingly ailing siblings. It was the war that made her father unfaithful, not her mother's drinking, said the sea captain. Nonetheless, she rode her daddy's tail feathers to a clerical position with MI5 in Singapore. It was there that she'd type out the first of the 337,000 short stories she published in The New Yorker, including Forgiveness, Forgetness, The Party, The Picnic, The People, The Peephole, Longing, Shorting, Shortbread, Shithead, Beach Read, Beaver Logic, The Herdsman's Schwanz, The Payphone, The Free Throw, El Chapo, Dr. Pumpkin, and The Love Song of Jadakiss Island, which was made into a discarded screenplay written by a boiled sock. Shirley Hazzard, I'm Not Hazard, and so on. And it's the birthday of poet Jack Spicer, more spicy than the sibling before him, but not as hot as the next. Born in Los Angeles, which he didn't care very much for, and educated at Berkeley, where he, Robert Duncan, and Robin Blazer formed the Berkeley Renaissance. Later the San Francisco Renaissance, when they moved there. Then the Haight-Ashbury Renaissance, though he hated Haight, and John Ashbery. Didn't like the metal numbers nailed to the storefront of the cafe he founded where Allen Ginsberg, whom he despised, first read Howl, wasn't a fan. Among Spicer's other dislikes were poetry, his and everyone else's, City Lights bookstore, City Nights, also rural ones, too many stars, both beats and squares were outside of his taste, Eugene McCarthy, Charlie McCarthy, that wooden communist, and writing. He wound up dictating most of his work, except he couldn't stand the sound of his own voice, so he put booze into the hole it came out of. Died of that eventually, which wasn't his favorite. And now, reluctantly, he haunts those of us who revere him, thumbing his ghostly nose at immortality and complaining about the smell of his thumb. Here's a poem for today by Jack Spicer entitled, A Poem to the Reader of the Poem. I throw a naked eagle in your throat. I dreamed last night that I was wrestling with you on the mountainside. An eagle had a dream over our heads. We threw rocks at him. I dreamed last night. This is false in any poem. Last night never happened. Couldn't make you feel the meaning so quickly that I could tell you what I dreamed last night. That I could tell you that I dreamed I was wrestling with the reader of this poem. Dreamed. Was it a wet dream or dry? Like a dream is when boys in a dream throw rocks at it. I heard myself sobbing in a wet dream. Don't worry, I will tell you everything. I had a dream last night that I was wrestling with you on the mountainside. Was it a wet dream? No, I would tell you if it was a wet dream. It was this poem. Us. I wrestled with you in this poem, and it was not a wet dream. Then define. If you don't want to scare him out of the poem, define the dream, the wrestling, the lie, and in what sweet Christ's name the eagle we were throwing rocks at was, and why I love you so much, and why it was not a wet dream. I can't deny the lie. The eagle was God, or Charles Olson. The eagle was men wrestling naked without the hope of men wrestling naked. The eagle was a wet dream. But the eagle in my throat says, Jack, how can you write a poem to the reader of a poem? Even in a dream, you must love somebody. This is another lie. I did not wrestle with anybody. I wrestled with the reader of this poem. Men kiss men not like anybody kisses a girl. Kiss each other like the map of Africa, or a picture of a desert, or a scale map of the entire universe. But this is not a wet dream. We did not kiss each other. My darling, if you flew a naked eagle in my throat, I'd shout exactly. When I said this was a poem to the reader, I wanted to dig a pitfall only you could fall into. You know who you are. Know how terribly far from last night you are. If I am old when you read this, if I am dead when you read this, darling, 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 it was last night when I wrestled with you. I am wrestling with you. It was not a wet dream, or you would be wrestling with a naked gravestone. Take it simply. Suppose we had been exploring the hills and canyons of hell, and wrestled, and fucked, and, hell, nothing but a spoiled camping trip. Wrestling. It was as if we were in a room full of faceless comedians. That wasn't what I wanted to say. I wanted to tell you that there is innocence too, and the blind grandeur of the face of a mountain in all we would have surveyed if it had been a wet dream, if we had traveled mapless past what either of us knew, past the dead eagle, past the faceless comedians who bug us, past the past that has misplaced us, past all the deadlines in a poem that, after all, are only deadlines in a poem, to the mountains, where our hearts are, where the heart is. A wet dream. I'll tell God it was a wet dream. A poem to the reader of the poem by Jack Spicer, used without permission here on the Writer's Allman Brother, supported by Lego-flavored suppositories, now with 30% more bad parenting. Until next week, be well, find a toad, and give it smokes.